It's being streamlined. Okay.
Well, hello. Good morning to our panelists and participants who tune in to join us, to join our discussion today, and welcome to the 5th SoundBridge Festival. And believe it or not, we are having it all online this year. And indeed, we are in a very interesting time. And that's the spirit of the arts that I think will never fade away in our life, right? Okay, now you are in a panel discussion session where we are very fortunate to have 5 distinguished speakers who will join us today to discuss the trends of cross-media in contemporary music. Together with us today, we are very happy to welcome a Javanese dancer, Mr. Agung Gunawan, who are actively performing all around the world. All right, and we also have a young composer and conductor, Dr. Piyawat Louilarpprasert from the College of Arts and Science, Cornell University, New York. And we also have a composer, Dr Anothai Nitibhon, Chair for the postgraduate program at Princess Galyani Vadana Institute of Music, Bangkok, a young composer, Ms Teh Tian Yoon, who is currently managing grants at Cendana, Malaysia, and she's a very, very important person, as all we know. And also, we are very delighted to have our contemporary dancer, director, academics, and virtual artist, Dr Tony Yap. Welcome. Okay, it is my humble moment to have all of these greatest artists sharing the screen with me. And I'm Dr. Sayyid Shafiee. I'm a composer, academics, and also a researcher at Taylor University, Malaysia. And I'll be your moderator for today. So welcome, everyone. Welcome. All right. Okay, so before I invited our panelists to share and talk a little bit about their works, I like to read a passage from a research paper that I found very, very interesting to open this session. All right, it was written by Catherine Duty from Huddersfield University. Okay, so here it goes. The interactions between visual art and music has become an integral part of art theory and history. So within the last 100 years, the presence of music-influenced artists has become common. All right, so abstract abstractionists like Jackson Pollock and cubist painter like Stuart Davis openly embrace jazz music among their artistic influences. So even when visual arts and music do not overtly influence one another, they can share abstract qualities without having a direct communication. Then this proves that any types of arts and music, can really share common cultural influence. All right, so this actually brings us to the central idea of this topic today, where we are going to hear from the panelists on how actually their work display the idea of cross-media and furthermore, to hear their perspective towards cross-media approach in their creative work. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Anothai Nitibhon, to share some of her works with us and maybe share a little bit more about her cross-media approach in the composition. Hello, Dr. Anothai.
Hello, hi, good morning. Yes, I'm fine, thank you. It's really nice and really an honor to be joining with this wonderful SoundBridge Festival. So thank you, Dr. Yoon and Dr. Sayyid for inviting me to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, all right. I'd like to start this conversation with a simple question on how your works actually display the idea of cross-media in general.
Yeah, in general, and may I share some of my examples just now? Yeah, thank you. Okay, sure. So I guess I would like to show maybe 2 types of example. There will be few small examples inside, but actually there's 2 directions that thank you for asking the questions. It's got me thinking as well. There's 2 ways that I approach it. First, if I have already certain musical ideas or certain sonic ideas that I would like to display to the world. And this is the first type of examples that I will be showcasing to you. And then the second type of thing is that when I need to draw inspiration from people or from their arts or from their stories, and then involve the ideas of media within my own composition. So let me go with the first types. Can you see my screen just now?
Yes, we can see, yes.
Yeah, okay, sure. So this started already like in 2009, which I know to coincide with the starting of the SoundBridge Festival in Malaysia. So this is the first time when I came back to Thailand, and I have to work with the Silpakorn University. And luckily in the university, there are many other like fine art departments, theater department, and all this kind of thing. And we have to put together one sound installation. I have to confess, I never did any sound installation before in my life. And that was the first time I have to match 15 of my students with the faculty from other department like fine arts, installation, and all this kind of thing. And because of that, we have certain ideas we would like to explore. For example, you see that some of the pictures, like in the middle, this actually with all these speakers. Actually, it was an idea that the artist would like to demonstrate the ritual which normally all students must do. We call it Waikru, which is the ceremony where all the students will pay homage to their teachers, and comes all these sounds that came from the ceremony. And when and the piece of wood in the middle, it means that you have to cross certain boundaries, and then you can go and be an artist yourself. So this is kind of like, for me, it's also going across the boundaries as well, in the way that going out from sounds to other things. So that's kind of like the first project that I did together with my students, and came the second installation with the idea of image space sound. This is a collaboration between myself, a visual artist, and an architect. And this is kind of really interesting in a way that we try to capture the sounds of central Bangkok, and demonstrated it through all these installations. So we try to capture sounds, how to make sound installation in the library where you are actually weren't allowed to use sound. So we have certain stories we wanted to tell people. And then comes the third installation. This is already like a national level. It's the Bangkok Art Center. And this is the first time that I have to kind of like make the installation design, curated the installation in the, how to call it, like if any of you had been in Bangkok Art Center, it's a kind of big chimney, and we have to put 8 sound installation together. And of course, sound installation makes sounds, and to be able to combine 8 works together, then you have to really compose. So that's the first time that I start to maybe start thinking of it as a composition, instead of just a kind of like musical ideas on a piece of paper, but of 8 musical ideas on a space. And come afterward, then after I start to work in Princess Kalanyanewatana Institute, then the musical materials change. I have to start working with the pre-existing classical music, and how do I integrate those ideas into the space and with other artistic qualities that surrounded it. And here this is the Bangkok Biennale, and we try to get also some of the classical music, the existing classical music pieces, also contemporary music pieces, into the space, and then make it almost like a performance art. And then, and here's sort of like it affected the way I work as a composer. You can see there's a sculpture at the back that is made completely with the Laxine tape. The whole sculpture was made from tape. So therefore, we can't find any other piece to fit into that space. So I wrote a little piece which is called Music for Tape. And really, it is the music that used tape as part of the instrument, and also making all these sounds. So you can see that now I realize that from working with installations, then feed it into the way I compose music as well. And I start to compose with the awareness of the colors, shapes, people, and space within my work. So that's sort of like the first approach. And here comes the second approach that I have, is when I have to work with the people in the community. This is also happened in 2007 when I first arrived in Thailand, that I was kind of like, after Dr Kiyon was just kind of mentioned as a post-concert talk yesterday, that he remember most of my scores when I arrived back from Edinburgh, that it's all very complex and all this kind of thing. But when I landed in Thailand, then you can barely find the ensemble that played those types of music. So I was sort of like trying to adjust for maybe a few months, and it was really lucky enough for me to be invited by one of the colleagues in the archaeology, actually. And then she was doing some projects in the northern part of Thailand. And they have all these really wonderful 2,000 years archaeological sites where people in the village weren't actually aware of the values of it. And she wanted to invite some of the artists to maybe find ways to communicate or tell stories about those places so that people are aware of how important those spaces are. And I was one of the artists that was being involved in that project. And then the first thing that I went and do, and I was going there, recording the stories, recording the sounds. You might recognize Ajahn Anand, who's also a very famous ethnomusicologist known in this region as well. And we collected those stories. And you can see that one of the kind of revealing things for me that I was trying to notate down some of the traditional music pieces there, but I realized it's so complex. You can't actually grasp the form and the structures of it. But once the people of that village start to dance, you immediately understand the structures of how those melodies work. And from that, because you can see, then I start to also at the same time communicating some of the musical ideas using dance, using space. And we were lucky enough also to have some of the artists installing some of the sculptures there. So you can see these are some of the sculpture that has been put into the village in all this really wonderful landscape. And I started to encourage the children in the village to react with all these sculptures. At first, of course, all the visual artists were kind of like a little bit restraining. They don't want people to touch their works. But in the end, I think we managed to sort of like communicate together and even sort of like ask them to react with all these dance. And we made a little bit of a kind of like a theater plus dance plus way to tell stories, that kind of thing. So that actually is the first project that I did instinctively, not intentionally, involve all these kind of different medias into the work. And those kind of thing led me to my own compositions in a way that I start to use dancer as a notation. This is a piece that I did in Yala province in the southern part of Thailand. I had been given like 3 hours to work with these wonderful young musicians there, and we need to create a piece within 3 hours. And we will have a performance the next day in which I wouldn't be there. So I have to find some way to still communicate the ideas that I had, but without me there and without notations that is too difficult for them to read within the 3 hours. So therefore I start using communicating together, creating ideas with them, and use dancer as a kind of notation for them. So this is a kind of like the first time that it's out of necessity, but somehow I find ways to do that. And then further on, I start to collaborate with a jewelry designer. This is another project that we had, and we were exploring different parts of bodies, the paint, and this is kind of like related to the ideas of Thai massage. And we start to explore the idea of pain within the body, how we realize the body. And it came this project, which is called Rusidaton. Any of you who visited Thailand might know this place. It's called Wat Po, and you can see all these kind of sculpture telling you, it captures the posture that you can relieve all these pains. And here is one of the projects that I did, kind of like, again, filming all these people doing improvisations about each part of their own bodies. And here you can see that people are talking about the chest, the ideas of beatings of the heart, and used all these improvisation, edited into a video, and use a video as a music score. I'll show you briefly of this work. for example, so this is, you can see that I was actually interview all these people. We did a little bit of writing, creative writing, telling about their own relationship with the heart. And then afterward, we film all these actors and use it as a score. So another idea that I like is that I like the ideas of the musician being an audience themselves as well. So they have to be an audience and then react to what they see. So this is a bit different, and I still explore those kind of things a bit beyond. You can see this is another project that I did. So instead of musicians kind of facing the audience as usual, wearing their own penguin costume, I mean, can we get to know them a bit beyond as a person for each person? And this is the project that I interview all these players and then use their own stories as a part of music. I also did that with another projects, for example, like with the saxophonist. We ask people to tell about their own relationship, their understandings themselves and their own instruments. And these lead to other projects that I also, instead of kind of just only interview the players, but also the audience, how people felt about this. Is another project, Ms Teh Tian is commissioned by the Goethe Institute to celebrate, of course, Beethoven's 250 years last year. And instead of kind of like composing a new piece for Beethoven, I decided to select some of the pieces that people in Thailand, 25 people in Thailand, mentioned that these are the things that they understand of Beethoven, and comes from all these like 6 years old who's blind to a people of a certain age that they have different memories or different understanding of what Beethoven's music is, and those combined together as a projections, documentaries, all this kind of thing. So this is another approach, and you might see some of my work yesterday. Thank you to Kiyoung. I also explore the ideas of pain in the hand that I have because of certain illness, and I was able to play piano, and how do I rediscover piano by all this kind of thing. So it's always the ideas of people, the body, the feelings inside that I try to, it's the stories that I would like to always at the end of my work. Yeah, so I think that's it. And maybe for other works when I perform, I also kind of like try to get involved as much as possible. This is kind of chamber music concert, but I also involve people in coming to tell stories, visual artists who come and display their own works using different forms, or dancers and all this kind of thing. So I think that's it.
Wow. Wow, thank you, Dr. Anothai. It was very, very inspiring, to look at all of the ideas and how you make it, how you manage to display it in a very, I might say, well diverse, cross media approach, and it was really, really inspiring. And I remember one moment that I have to work with architecture when I was doing my PhD. I have to work directly with the building. So I think for cross media disciplines or maybe cross media approach like this, to really somewhat make it the idea more simple and effective is one of the good approach. And when I look at how you structure everything, it looks very, very easy and very, very close to the participants or to the audience, right? Okay, so yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Anothai. It's very, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Okay, we wanna see, of course, we wanna see more and more works from all of the composers here, right? And also, all right, because we have Dr. Tony Yap here. Of course, I'm gonna ask him how this cross-media approach contributes to the overall landscape of performing arts world. Of course, Tony Yap here, he got huge experience in working all of these cross-media approach. So hope to see works from Tony Yap, and also how this really contributes to the overall landscape in performing arts world, Tony. Yeah, I think you're on mute, Tony.
Thank you, and thank you, Anothai, for that wonderful presentation. Yes, I was actually was wondering what cross media meant for a while, and it took me to know what you actually meant. I actually thought the whole technological change that we are facing now, and with the last 2 years of lockdown, that how we approach our medium into a kind of cross media like Laurie Anderson in a kind of approaches. And of course, I think that was a very nice illustration also. So Anothai presented in another form. I think, I mean, basically, I'm an actor, a dancer, and I'm a person of the body, and it always fascinates me how one can collaborate with the composers in a musical sense, in the sonic area, and how in a very simple structure one could dominate the other, or you dance to the music, so to speak. And one of the few interesting projects I had was on Earl Brown's idea of notation, and it was introduced by a composer here in Melbourne called Carmen Chan. So, can you see what I hear? And it was a very interesting area for us choreographers because the notation was, as you might know, is not a kind of a usual musical notation. Nonetheless, for choreography, how do you notate? And so that opens up a whole wonderful abstraction approach to listening and to effects and to actually what moves us as human beings and why do we want to do it. And that was amazing in the kind of a process. And mostly it was experimental in that sense that we in process we discover as a choreographer how one moves and how new movement comes out from this process. And that's exactly what's really interesting for me is, hey, an emotional area triggers a kind of a gravitational breath link movement, and how do you notate that, and what is the effect? And so it's wonderful always to work with musicians in that capacity. And when you have a composer, it's even a bit more complex, because usually if you have one musician and one performer, you already have long-term collaborative areas where you can understand nuances that you can't even put to words. And those are the things, the unspeakable, the unknowable, are what really interests me in the process. So the one project was this, can you see what I hear? Unfortunately, I didn't put any videos on, sorry, but you could see it later on my website or something. But there's so many. And the other one obviously is a collaborative, intercultural, interdisciplinary collaboration we had in South Korea, and then later we call it Kekai, and we have a Japanese installation artist and two musicians, the composers from Australia, Tim Humphrey and Madeline Flynn, and then a theatre company, Nortel Theatre Company, with a director from South Korea. And this process it started off with an intention not to have any outcome. And that was a very interesting, so we go there and we don't want to have an outcome. And that was a different way of listening, a different way of dehabitualizing things, how we approach listening to the background, or or just quickly tape music or get surround sounds as the musicians were getting from the surrounding industrial sites, etc. But yeah, in that process of 1 month, we eat together, we share personal stories, sometimes accidentally, and somehow in this kind of intercultural situation, it seems a forgotten thing, because we always artificially say let's collaborate, and here is a time frame, and this is the method, and this is the objectives, etc. But here is something that thrown out the window, and I was very interested in that process. Most of my other processes are quite personal, so because I don't follow, I suppose, a kind of structural area. It gives me area to indulge in experimental areas of an otherness, of ways to fail, of approaches like that. So in the intercultural situation, working with musicians, I have worked also with long-term musicians and very contemporary. And so because I work in particular area of dance that is informed by aesthetics that's a little bit darker or like trance area, so they might be a bit unbridled. So the musicians were quite, it takes a long term to understand and to actually say, hey, this structure works for that, for a kind of containment so that you can lose yourself. And so those kind of new areas of collaboration was really, really rich, I think. I don't know how long I should talk. I can talk forever. So stop me.
Tony, I believe you have video to share with us. If I'm not mistaken, you have.
Can we
share? Can we share that video?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, Tony, maybe you can talk a little bit about this work.
Okay, this is Kekai. This is actually from what I was talking about in South Korea. And so we have dancer. Well, it's basically what I talked about. So it is a novelty. The company, Tim Humphrey and Madeline Flynn as composers, musicians, and then Naomi Ota, who does the installation from Japan, and I and the dancers and actors worked, in the kind of a structure to a. So maybe you can watch it, quite short. Mm-hmm. Thank you. It was just a little.
Well, that's very, yeah. Sorry. You continue.
Yeah, it's about boundaries, as you can see. So there's a lot of social boundaries, and also an inner and outer world boundaries, and it really tests everybody's area of creation, especially theater, when they, when we speak, and how the narrative is and script is a challenge and into an immersive experience for the audience. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, Tony. So for the past 40 minutes during this session, I've been looking at various cross-media approach between Anothai and also Tony, and I think this cross-media approach is quite in trend now. To see all of these ideas flowing around between artists and also composers. I think we are on the right track. When we talk about IR 4.0, when we talk about the technology advancement, this is something that we should looking forward to, in order for us to create new works. All right, so I like to invite two of our highly talented composers here, Dr Piyawat Louilarprasert and also Teh Tian Yoon, to share their works and maybe to discuss a little bit more further about this cross-media topic. And then maybe you can explain a little bit about how you feel this cross-media approach is something that we should looking forward to. All right, maybe we can start with Tian, if you like, and maybe followed by Piyawat after that.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm really biased if I'm going to directly answer the question, why is cross-media work important? I say that it's not, but I've made this kind of work because that's how I write. I don't have a choice and a say in the matter. And that probably came from, once upon a time after high school, I did my first diploma in music. And in my third semester I realized that I was writing these pieces with the story, with the way Anothai works. It's very ethnographic, it's very personal, it's work in progress, it's self in process, and all those things. It's site specific, there's lights, there's staging, and I bring all of that in, and my teachers say, very good. To be honest, I can only help you with the music part. And that was I love them and they're still great. I'm sorry, you're not my teacher, but your clan. But I realized that I was very much a performance artist. I didn't know it then. What's it called? So my pieces have been that way. I think it has been 7-8 years and I have not been really written ideated a music piece through and through. I do make a lot of technical exercises and etudes and things like that to learn and drill and play with your craft. But when it comes to actually being creative, I don't know, perhaps it's because I am part of a generation that is incredibly privileged in that we learn music and dance and martial arts at the same time. There was enough resources for that. There was, at the same time you're doing for math classes and, all these things. And that kind of enrichment laid down the kinds of cross neural pathways that perhaps today, when I need to be creative and what gets activated, that's that. So I don't know if it's important, but it is how I am today. And so I would embrace it. I would say though that contemporary, and if I define that as being in the here and the now, I think cross-media work is a trend that is ripening. It is already ripe, but right now it's blossoming. For largely two larger environmental factors that is beyond me. One of it I have already mentioned before, which is the kind of exposure and upbringing that I have. Imagine Crystal Pite, if we're going to talk about contemporary dance, right? She had ballet and she was also breakdancing. And when it was time for her to create, she could fuse both. It's not something that someone who has just done one and then did others much later in life could kind of integrate at that point in life so early on in a choreographic career. So that's where we started this conversation. But there's also a second part where I feel that like Anothai's work, like Tony Yap's work, it's incredibly collaborative. Right? Composition in the way that I've learned it in music conservatory. Is like I go into a hole and then I write. And then you play. I don't know if it sounds good or not. I hope it does sound good, right? Or I hope it sounds like what I want it to be. Whereas a collaborative effort, I think kind of exists. I've tasted two worlds where it exists. One of it is in the way that Tony has it. It's in a very artistic space. It has a lot, it's in an art scene that has enough resources, but also a dense population of different artists in a condensed area. So it's a little bit like being in New York as well, where Cornell, where Piyawat is. And it's, you go out with, think about how the Barber of Seville came out, Rossini, his roommates are, the playwright, his roommates are the other people. Think of Debussy when he wrote like his whatever, think about Cunningham and Cage, when you go out and yum cha, right? All your friends, you have that crosstalk already happening, right? And that's that immersive space that Tony Yap was talking about. Right. And when you spend time together, when I was in Oberlin College in the States studying, my housemate was an aerial artist, a circus artist. I mean, I'd be having lunch and then she would just come home and she would just decide that I'm just going to climb out through the fire escape and, come in, ooh, lunch. And then she just went. And we ended up making a piece together. Right, and it's just things like this where you have an artistic space that is vibrant, you live together, you're immersed in that setting, and it is very, very luxurious because it's luscious, it's very resource driven, right? And that's one space where contemporary works today, right? Our society allows for that in certain places in the world. But then there's also the other side to cross-media work that has existed long before spaces like a conservatory, long before spaces like an art center has existed, long before residencies have came to be. And I think that's speaking of where Agung is in Pacitan, right? Dimana, you have dance and the music, and it's that Thai village. That's the economic center is what Agung and Lizzie built, right? You see a lot of that in Taiwan. And I think the other place where cross-media work tends to exist is also where you have a dense population of artists cross-collaborating, but it's small enough and everyone is forced into a situation where you have to collaborate to survive and make it through in the long term. And I think some parts of Klang Valley in my time when I just came out as a student and started exploring is a little bit like New York 40, 50 years ago when La Mama was just starting. And I don't know how old La Mama is, but it's that really, really, I don't know, it's the scene where you just have to collaborate to make things work. And it is ripe it is contemporary, it is emerging as a trend, it's coming up right now because of the social and also population and demographic influence of it. And in these two senses, and also given the kinds of resources that I've had, and experience growing up, I think it is timely. I don't think it is a trend to pursue in the sense that, oh my gosh, this is so important, the way that Beethoven work is important that you need to study and do it. I think it's, if you are a pineapple, if you squeeze the pineapple juice comes out. And I think for artists today, different ones of us, if you squeeze us, the essence of what comes out of what is contemporary today would have some elements of cross-media work, because that is our main medium of stimulus, especially now that we have to go digital. I don't know if you guys are intrigued, but I so am that SoundBridge has gone very visual. Something that has always been purely about, not purely, but the main focus is sound. this season, as I work with like the engineers and Kyung and all of this, the visual aspect has come into the foreground, as well as visual and movement within the visuals, because otherwise it's completely static, right? And then it's a documentation instead of a performance. And all of these things combined, I think makes art here and here now today, right? I don't know how long cross media is gonna last. I know that it's my happy place for the last, I don't know, can I say 10 years? Not there yet. But yeah, yeah, that's how I am right now. That's how I think. I prepared something, but I'm not sure when's a good time to share it. I'm taking up a lot of airtime. We can move on to Piyawat.
No, I mean, yeah, Tian, you can always share your works. You know, we would like to.
Sure. Okay. In that case, this is just a little something that I am recycling of cross-media work and my approach to it. So it is a few layers of conversations at once. And what you'll be seeing is past work, but what you'll be hearing is about present work that we're working on in Malaysia and what's possible here. So yeah, I'm going to share it. Let's see, QuickTime Player, share sound, optimize for video. Okay, here goes. Oh, wow. Okay, and all right, are you seeing my video screen? Yes, awesome.
Yes, we are.
Hi, my name is Tian. To me, sound in essence is movement. When movement stills, my mind moves. And when my mind can be still, ideations happen. And in those moments, my skills, my history, my feelings of the moment, my experience becomes a vessel for the idea to take shape on earth, as expressed on earth. That's what I call art. I am currently working with a dancer who is a survivor of stroke and a violinist who loves to play and move. None of them are in the videos, so don't guess. The videos are other people. We are developing a piece titled Stroke that unpacks the word. On a technical conversation, strokes or lines are incredibly important in both contemporary dance technique and string bowing technique. Emotionally, strokes are gentle, lyrical, abrupt, edgy, bold. And for some people, stroke means disability. So the violinist, the dancer, and I, we are building a piece, a musical experimental dance opera-ish kind of thing. Imagine this, 5 vocalists that double as movers. We are going to use what Meredith Monk gave us and go as far as we can with it. We have 5 dancers who double as sound-making agents, and we're going to start with where Pauline Oliveros gives us with her meditations. Love that woman. We're gonna find music and behaviors and expression through sound from people who generally prefer to be silent and express by doing. Think Rebecca Saunders in the strings, who writes for strings as if they're synths. Think Rebecca Saunders meets Crystal Pite, a contemporary choreographer who fused breakdancing technique into ballet. Think about cellos doubling as human bodies, bodies as instruments, instruments as bodies. Think about an ensemble of that 10 dancers and vocalists lifting humans, instruments, puppets, falling, holding, rescuing.
This is 12 with as many 4 tetrachord always above after it.
Like many dancers, the dancer that we are working with told us many times that music is the soul to his movement, and what we do will become fuel to his journey. So to me, the canvas of love that is the foundation of this piece is like a metaphor that we all walk on roads that someone else has paved before we arrive. And with the deeds and words that we offer, sometimes we might carry someone through a passage of their life. I don't believe that I can save the world, and I just don't have that ambition, but I hold dear to this thought. I can reach those whom I can reach, and that's enough for a lifetime, maybe. by holding a space of deep listening, encouragement, expression, love. I hope that stroke would be as much luck as it is companionship, to accompany and witness someone coming fully alive again in the body that they all inhabit. I am Tian, and I write compositions like it is choreography.
Wow, interesting, very interesting. Well, thank you, Tian. Thank you, Tian. I really like your analogy, you know, the stories that you have, you know, working with this kind of approach and all that. I really like it. It's very inspiring. And it also reminds me on Hans Abrahamson's work, Let Me Tell You, where he basically used a very subtle, I might say, approach in cross media when, you know, he just using text and manipulate it into his operatic works. It's very, very interesting. Yeah, I just remember that works that really moved me during my PhD years. All right, okay, let's listen. Let's hear from Piyawat. Piyawat also a conductor, young composer, and he's now at Cornell University. Yeah, so Piyawat, how your works evolve, when we talk about cross-media music, how your works really, associate with this kind of works, and how important you think it is.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Dr. Sayyid. I'm such a pleasure to be here. Before I go to my work, I would like to reflect some of my thoughts to other panelists as well. I think I would like to start with Anothai, and I kind of have a question which we can discuss later. I think it's kind of like, I think Anothai has kind of the merge between not only cross media but also the cross disciplinary, where based on the happening situation, right? Because like it must be happen when you go to experience there. Like it doesn't work just only like we look on the screen, right? And then I have a similar thoughts in my works too, so I will share it in a moment. And then for Dr. Tony, I really appreciate the, your works remind me a lot with the movement, like the way of a body expression, where I think the body itself, maybe we can consider it as media somehow. I feel like it's kind of the connection between virtual media or real media, or that we will talk later, of course. And for Tian, I think it's very beautiful and poetic, theatrical. I think there's a lot of happenings, like not just only like contemporary music style, but also like the notion of the symbolic meaning of the movement, right? The plot, like the way, like the pacing that you talk, right? That's a kind of like the flowness of the show. Cool. So I would like to just start from my presentation. Everyone see a kind of like dark. Okay, so I actually like when I read the topic of today, I'm very excited actually. I kind of like, the first question that came to my mind is that because the media for me, like I start myself as start with trombone player, and then be a composer, arrange some pop music, and then after pop music I go straight for contemporary, like kind of European way, the school, like Germany. And then I just lately I found like just from like 2017, I found that my role as a composer has changed to become more visualized, actually. So I have been working a lot with the visual components, and then it's kind of there's one word that I really like, and I feel like it's suit to me, kind of like transformational process. So it's like once you learn one thing, and then it become another thing, and then it kind of create something else. So like my very first piece for visuals, let's say, I start, working with a performer, actually, like a human person. And then we start to talk about the idea, like what does it mean to you when I compose a piece for electronics, for video, for you to solo saxophone. So like we talked like a lot, and then we came up with the idea about like sometimes there are some example of pieces that the music and the media doesn't match at all, but it's a kind of like bump in together. So like we try to find a way like how to make it meaningful, right? How to make it like blend together. So we start to think about the quality of sound, right, as a composer, right? So we kind of like try to think more the qualities of the sonic idea. For example, distortion, right? For example, some kind of the relation between the ambiguity of sound, like some a granular synthesis, ear cam stuff. So maybe people like to talk about that. So but then it just kind of like merged to the sight, right? The visual sensory, like how we look, how we feel the the granulated pictures, the pixels, as well as the sound. So that's a kind of like my first project that I have been thinking about the relation between sound and media. And then after that, I become more try to explore with some sort of projection, right? Because like most of kind of when we said about media, cross media, it like media could be like social media, right? Facebook, right? Or media could be visual media or advertised media, when you get like ad like pop up every time you click YouTube. And then so it's kind of like a mixture between the virtual and the reality, right? So I start to try to project this idea to the wall because the wall has a kind of potential of like, for example, the whiteness, right? The cleanness, like that we can point out. It's like when we start PowerPoint, right? We start everything from clean and then we start to make it dirt, right? So at the same time, another project with kind of thinking about the city, like the city that have a lot of movements, and then I kind of like try to focus on the projection of the position and how it, each of the projection could relate it to the environment of the room. So it's more likely it's a piece for the room, right? So it's a piece for it's not a visual media piece, but it's a piece that we made for that room for people, for human to experience inside. And at the same time, like later, I also, after working with videos, right, and then come through a little bit of space, like I said about before, like about transformational process. So now the journey come through like the kind of interaction between the real performer and the visual like behind. So like this piece is commissioned by International Contemporary Ensemble. So we work together like to think about what does it mean about stage? What does it mean about the wall? So we try to think about how to make the sound become as another instrument. How to make the visual behind them become another component of the piece, like another instrument, another output. So that's a kind of like starting point that I start to kind of merging each material from piece by piece. And then after that, I also have a similar idea, but also have a kind of more improvisational way. So I'm not in this work, I'm also the performer, so we kind of improvise. So I start to move from just only visual side environment and then become more like a coding person. So like the lines, like the visual. So like I also make some coding from the super collider, and then like just to make the visual happens, and then the visual itself react to the sound from the microphone that also interact from the the parameters of frequency, such as high, low, medium, loud, soft, or small timbre, high intensity. So it's kind of like more quality to program into the wall again. So, but it's like I just want to make sure that there's some relation between them. And then okay, so this is me. I think I feel like I have been presenting a lot like this year. I don't know why, but I always have this picture. So so after that, after I have been working with visuals stuff, and then I found that, I mean, this is an intentional picture, because as you can see, there's a girl take me a camera from there on the right. So I found that when I play in the hall, this is one piece. But when I see my piece that I played in the hall from computer, it's another piece. There's a kind of like feeling, like different feeling between attending live concert or attending virtual concert. And like for example, in the case of Anothai's work, it's like if you be there, you're gonna experience one thing, but when you like just look in the screen, it's kind of misleading somehow into, which is I don't feel in a negative way, but it's just more likely possibilities of perception, right? And then so after that, I keep playing with my tubes, and keep playing with more something that I can touch. keep playing with the media that myself become a part of the media, like my presence become media. So I start to do live performance, of course, but then I know, like Anothai, we work many times with editing videos, so it's kind of like another process of the piece. So this is the work that I improvise with, like no mixing input. I'm sorry, no input mixing, and like my friends had with motors. As you can see, I just like zoom out, like this is kind of motors I work. It's like simple but easy. Be careful, like don't break your house with electricity. And then okay, so after that, like I just move from the media, become more like a kind of instrumental builder, like maker. So like as you can see, like my three friends here become one, but with more kind of develop, kind of more fusion, more merge. So but at here, what we see now is that there's not only object, but there also the shadow, right? The shadow, like behind the media, the object, which become another layer of media, and people call it multimedia. I don't know, there's so many definitions, but we will talk about that. So yep. So lately I just kind of like like a monkey, like run around, but I mean in a kind of like similar fields, like for example, like from here, so start from like motors, like some visuals, some real performance, some tubes, some objects, some shadow of the object, and then object become instrument itself with no player. For example, this is my new work. It's called Violator. So it's a robot like tree that create a movement by coding, and also interact with the like the wireless motor here from the violist, and then it's kind of duo. It's kind of like doppelganger somehow, like between the machine and human. And then sometimes I just get really bored with art, to be honest. I'm sorry, but I try to be fun, okay? So I start to burning things down. So like I start to think like, hey, so if we do kind of performance art, right? Like we all learn like Fluxus, we all learn like, you know, all like Cargo or like Pauline Oliveros or Evelyn Lucier. But then like, what about like if we make a production, right? So we do ourselves like many things, video, recordings, feel like walk to the tunnel, record sound to some village, talk to people, right? But then we make the production. So it becomes my recent work during the lockdown time last year. It's called Burning Symphony. So I just basically got donation from people instrument and then start to burn them and then try to record the burning sound and then start to, you know, thinking about the idea of collection of medias, of people who surrounded me. Like this work is more like kind of course I like, you know, work on the concept, but then we have collaborators to help each other to try to, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And then probably like this is my last example before I show you some pieces. So this is my recent works as well. So it's a kind of like the as far as now, it's a kind of ultimate can you hear me? Sorry. Okay, so it's kind of like ultimate ideas of the, you know, the combination with those collective thoughts. So it becomes a piece for guitar lights, which is each light react through the sound from guitar, and the video projection behind also react from the light, and the speaker at the bottom also react from the video. So it's kind of like circulation of the materials and also the connection. Like I recently discovered that lately when I work more with media, multimedia, or like objects, installation, it's like kind of fun. Like it's kind of like we can, you know, we can touch it, we can, you know, work on it. So I found that it's more likely you experience them, which we don't need score anymore. That's what I found. And then after that, I extend this piece to be with orchestra, of course, and then you know, similar process, but more people, classical style, right? Like one layer, doubling, right? So okay, so I think I talked too much, and then I would like to share some of the work that might be interest you. So I would go for the work for electric guitar and lights, electronics, and videos. So maybe we can listen a little bit of excerpt. Yep, so the whole piece is like 12 minutes. Please have yourself. You can search it anytime. And the second one, I would like to show you the Burning Symphony that I told you. So it's a piece that I wouldn't say the piece. I would just say it's a happening situation that I made with a group in Thailand called the Festival. So we intend to make it as a short film. So it become another media. It's become like another film, but it incorporate the idea of could be the destruction of the music somehow, and also like the relation between a film, like when you go film it, and the way you aware during the performance. So it's kind of like on camera and behind camera. Okay, so maybe we can look a bit of that. So the whole work is like 23 minutes. So I just like recommend if you're interested to listen, to watch it. I wouldn't say listen anymore. So yeah, so I just want to conclude about my work that I currently I'm interested in the doing process, like when you go down, like composer, when you go down and when you make something, not just score, right? And then we try to think like what is really crossing, right? So you want to cross or not, right? You want to cross from your function as a composer to be something else or not? You want to cross yourself, you want to jump yourself into the media or not, or you want to cross the disciplines or not? So that's a kind of my conclusion. Thank you very much, and I hope to discuss with.
All right, thank you very much, Piyawat. It is very interesting when you talk about interactions, you know, your piece where the guitarists interact with the lightings and all that. And it just also reminds me of watching Pauline Oliveros last time when I was in Birmingham, you know, where she interacts directly with another accordion from across the world using Skype. And that sparks the questions of you know, what is it actually going to happen? Maybe it's somehow related to what Tony just mentioned. You know, sometimes we just want to enjoy the process. We don't want the outcome. We don't want to, we just don't want to, maybe we can enjoy the outcome without any specific process. And it also, you know, sparks another questions of, you know, what, you know, how as a composer, you know, you can you can develop your own identity or your own originality, right? So that's going to be another question. That's going to be, before we ask our panelists to answer this question about originality and also identity in their composition works, let's invite Agung Gunawan here, our next panelist, to maybe share a little bit about his cross-media works. And of course, we know Agung very actively performing all around the world as a dancer. So maybe he can share his works on how he incorporate cross-media practices in his journey as an artist. Please welcome Agung.
Thank you, Dr. Said.
Good to see you, Agung.
Terima kasih. Thank you, Mr. Kiong, Dr. Kiong, and also SoundBridge Festival. And I don't know what I can say to you. So beautiful work it was, and other panelists. So it'll make me think, because yesterday is quite hectic for me, how I can share what is understanding about cross-media means. So maybe I will start from introducing myself. So as you know, I'm a dancer. I born in the village nearby Prambanan Temple and also nearby Yogyakarta city. And I was starting study dance in the traditional way, background, and also after I learned court dance in Javanese style. So maybe if we talk about cross media, so it's mean for me is about communication and involving. So that is where I'm starting. So communication with my culture, communication with my people, communication with many things lively in our village and also in Yogyakarta especially. So, and then in my mind, so maybe quite different what is a cross media before pandemic and after pandemic. I mean, in the COVID-19. Kind of like before is more complex for myself. So can be complex means like can be from different art background, from different media platform for every, and also a lot of things from the different area. So now my understanding and I mean specific in my area, specific what I'm doing after the pandemic time. So we are kind of like to focus with the specific in technology, for example. So kind of like different means like on the process, different how the output or different of the feeling, and so many questions for myself until now. So maybe it's really hard to talk about this without showing something. So maybe I can share what video I gave you later before we can talk more about what is cross media and my feeling. Actually, this work is my collaboration with Tony Yap, one of the panelists here, and also my friend. He is a doctor also, an architect, called Mr. Michael Bloom. It's quite long work. This was 2012. We performed in Yogyakarta and also in Melbourne. So maybe from there, so you can pick up what is the cross media, what I mean. So maybe could you help me to play that?
Sure. Yes, I think they are presenting it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. So this work called Gerobak Padi. Hi, Tony. We are here. What I want is share about culture with the something real, something original, even small.
Growback Paddy was a really complex but a really important project as part of the Melbourne International Festival on many levels. The most important thing, I think, was the connection culturally and internationally between the two countries, between Australia and Indonesia. And I think the arts are a really powerful way to connect people.
We look at the life of one gerobak seller, a satay seller, how he starts early in the morning, 5 o'clock, or 4:30, he gets 2-3 chicken and he skewers them, and then the whole process. And it's the same thing every day. But if you watch him carefully, you will see that he's almost in a ritual rather than a routine, and somehow it's no different than any monk. There's this kind of a meaning between him and life, the sense of some basic, fundamental principles of life.
Tapi udah lama nggak makan bakso, jadi kangen. Iya.
Gerobak Paddy had an amazing effect on the Indonesian community in the sense that it was very much community spirited, in the sense that all of them were working together, providing a performance and food together as a community for the Australian community. So they were working in a spirit of togetherness, and that was lovely. And to be part of an artistic piece also of Melbourne Festival was really an exciting part of the whole program for them.
The importance of the Gerobak Paddy as part of the Melbourne Festival, because Melbourne Festival is a cultural festival, and Gerobak Paddy represents the Indonesian culture, and not just that. The Gerobak Paddy also empower the existing Indonesian community here that will give that could contribute to multicultural here in Melbourne.
Video art I shot in Jogja, and that's being shown on little 10-inch tablets that are part of the carts, and on another tablet, 2 per cart, there's a live link to Jogja, to Yogyakarta. So we've got our Indo crew over there, some people that we've been working with for a long time, some great bunch of guys, and they're running around all of the different markets. The Kraton Palace area particularly, where we've done a lot of work.
So it was really interesting to form a working relationship with Bimo and Alti, but it was all virtual. It was all through the live feed. We didn't actually ever meet them in person.
It broke down, I think, those formal barriers that happen when you're communicating with people via phone and via email, where it becomes very work-related, whereas we developed, I think, over the days of the festival, a kind of friendship through the tablets that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
It was really sad to see them go, like at the end of it, when we were saying goodbye and for the last time, because at the end of every night we would say goodbye and we'd shut down.
It was really good for Agung to be a part of the introduction of the Indonesian team as well, to have an introduction so that we had a more social method of getting in connection with these people rather than a pure working relationship.
All the dancers in the company really appreciate what it's offering, because it's very, very different to the stuff we know. We like to really move hard and all that kind of hard costume, but for him, everything is more like a techniques and more kind of internal stuff, which we are quite happy to embrace and develop as time goes on.
It's definitely very important for the people in my group. When I say that, I mean the dancers and the theatre practitioners that are in Tony Yap company, to have met Agung, to see how my work is influenced and is related to an Asian tradition, and how that tradition is translated into a contemporary language. One of the most important concepts of the mask is simply saying that the mask is actually not to cover your face, it's not to hide something. But because of the mask, you reveal more yourself. So it's because of the mask that I can have a kind of confessional and openness of my true self.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. Agung, okay, you may continue.
Yeah. So maybe this is a kind of I can how to say. That is my understanding what cross media means for me. So it doesn't different from the pandemic and after pandemic. That is what I'm feel. So cross media for me is it's like life, the process of life, the process of how you create work with your passion, with your something what you want to explain, something what you want to share. So it means you can how to say, you can skip what you have in before in the past. So like the continuity, the process is always going through. So whatever media platform is same, it is alive. So when I got it, that's mean the cross media meaning is more something, something mean can talk what we want to share. So that is what a simple word what I understand. So yeah, sorry if I can't explain more.
Yeah. Thanks.
So
Thanks.
Maybe Tony also can talk about this because I have a long term work with him. So that's starting early in 2000, and then we still have a continue about that. So Tony, you can share about this too.
Yes, Tony, if you like.
Yeah.
If you like, Tony.
Thank you, Agung, but I haven't seen that video before. It was quite, quite a nice surprise. Seeing ourselves 1 decade ago, 10 years younger than we are now. But it's interesting how we started and where we are now. I think we were talking about body as a media, also how we change in our bodies, how we have, you're from a kraton, a classical movement background to you came to me to Korea, etc. And how, I remember, like going to museums and stuff and saying, you never fit into that clothes of a different era. People change, and you say something about how it's a continuity. That's an interesting area, and we in a lifetime change too. Like you grow older, and how we move, especially as a dancer, changes. It doesn't qualify it as good or bad, but it does question about a reality and authenticity about who we are at any moment, historically and also personally as a human being. So it is a very important kind of sense of,
All right. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Agung. Okay, and when I knew Agung, I think like 10 years ago, so whenever we knew Agung, whenever we see Agung perform, he always with the mask, right? So Agung somehow developed his identity, the originality of his work. So this brings us to the next question, where I would like to invite each one of the speakers to maybe just give us short opinion about how this cross-media works or approach can actually develop our own identity and originality. Maybe we can start with Anothai to share about your opinion about the originality in your work.
I think I completely agree with Agung in the way that cross-media is live. I think we wake up, I'm really glad that we do this talk in the morning, because when you wake up in the morning, it's already cross-media. The way you feel the blanket on your bodies, the way you peel off the blanket, make the first sounds. You wouldn't be considering like what kind of sounds you make, what kind of movement you make, but it's the whole thing going together. So I think we wake up cross-media. We are born with cross-media in a way, and we screams and then stretch our body and those kind of things. So I think the more I think of it, I can understand the academic approach of how to explain all this kind of thing, but I feel that we can take this much more instinctively. So that's the first thing. And the second thing that I start to feel is music itself is also a type of media as well. And we can find ways to how we use it. Like in my case, I start to realize that my father is a medical doctor. So my approach to music is, in one way, I always give significant that I always think that the importance of music it should be a place where people can reveal themselves, where people can find the best versions of themselves, and this is always possibly kind of like the motivations of why I do music. Therefore, a lot of my work, compositions, installation, doesn't matter what kind of mediums or tools or things in between is, but my intention is always about finding the best out of people and find a way to help them expressing themselves the best. And it's less about me in the work. I mean, Kyung know this very well. I barely want to appear in front of camera. And so when he asked me to send in the me talking in front of the piece, it's impossible for me to do it. I just use hands of the players and then just small words. And I felt that maybe for me, I'm using media as a part to help other people to be themselves, to find themselves again. So those kind of things. So maybe that's the originality. It's not originality of my work, but it's the people in their own original form. That's something I think media role is.
Very interesting insight, I believe. Yeah, very interesting point of view, I might say, when we talk about originality. Oh yeah, maybe Tian or Piyawat, you wanna chip in and talk about, how do you feel like, I mean, how do you think of originality when we talk about this cross-media approach? Tian.
Cool. I think it's also, well, everyone here has talked about different processes, right? I mean, of course, the veterans here have gone through different phases of processes. Anothai has done a lot of site-specific work, and I think one of the things that came out is I think in museum, the study of museum and curations and visual arts and installations, there's a lot of talk about activating a piece. It's always hung on the wall, and then you talk about, when you go into a museum, all the kids do is that it's yay high and they just look and then they get bored unless you tell the story. And so there's the question of when you put something in a place, when you put sculptures in, whether you put the broken pieces with the whole pieces, whether you put bronze statues next to white statues in an predominantly colored community, you activate the piece differently. And it sounds like when we cross media, we are starting to activate music as composers in a different fashion, where music has been a predominantly conversation of material in time, a conversation with time. As we cross mediums, it has now become a conversation with space, right? In Piyawat's work, the wall, right? And then the flames, there is warmth, there is fury in that. There is also like, shit, what do we do now? Okay, it's burning, cool. And there's all of those aspects in there, right? There's a lot of storytelling. There's a lot of in Tony and Agung's work. There is, when you have the camera that up close, it becomes very personal. Right, this conversation that you have with space and proximity, you close that distance. And so I think originality in terms of, I'm going to speak of this as two parts. Well, I'm going to discount the first one. I used to think originality is something that you create and no one else has created before. And that's when I started, as like when I was 15, my first SoundBridge festival, and I've been here forever. And it's I was on the track of going to find the best teachers that would help me at that point in time, and going for the next degree, next PhD, next festival, next presentation, all the best. And then I got to college, a conservatory, where you are in a small class size where everyone has a different specialty. It's the difference between putting 100 violinists in one place and putting a violinist next to a circus artist, next to a programmer, next to a neuroscientist. Competition then becomes a celebration, right? Because how am I going to sustain a conversation with you this entire semester when I have no clue what you're doing? And that was a very humbling experience. So now I think about originality as what is truthful in right now with whatever I'm working on, an aspect of truth, an aspect of reality. And it's possible that I think in the performing arts space, you talk a lot about process, and the process that you use has primed the final outcome. So in the process of, I think Piyawat starts a lot with technology, right? And the study of technology and circuitry and all the gear that's available to you, whether you use fluorescent lights, whether you use LEDs, that's one part. That's one thing that will shape the originality, the tools that are at your disposal. When we look at Agung's piece in the gerobak padi, you see sight, the physical site-specific work, right? And sight becomes your process of understanding how you're going to move through traffic without getting killed, you know, and while also having camera crew following you. That shapes the originality. When you have to stream from two places, that process is going to shape the origins of your work and the considerations that you have, the people that you work with, their stories, what do they do. In Tony's work, where in the experimental piece, it becomes an exploration with no outcome in mind. I don't know if that was the piece or if that's another one, but then when you're free to play then becomes your process, and play then becomes a place of the work, the originality of that work is then discovery. Right, and in Anothai's work, where you activated the piece with the glass with the kids, that is also play. That is also, you set up this enactment and it looks stunning, and then the kids go in and they'll be like, what the fuck is this? Yay! And that breathes a different life, a different process, and the intentions of the piece, but then it has a new origin added to it. And now we talk about right here, we are doing cross-media work on Zoom virtual. And so there is, I think Piyawat was the one that mentioned, you know, there is the composition and the choreography that happens during the production and before the production process, but then there is a second choreography and second composition that happens during the editing process, where, you know, if you put the footage of the inner voices and no footage of the main melody, that's what people are going to hear. And all of this, I think, are origins. All of these are place of inspiration. Pick your poison, if I'm going to say that. If anyone wants to do cross-media or has the hunger and curiosity, make friends. If you're in Malaysia, go to places like Kongsi KL, where you can have all these labs and just like, you know, join SoundBridge, come back. And just play, throw everything away and just play. And yeah, that's, then you'll turn into one of these people by accident. The origins of insanity.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Piyawat, you raise your hand. Do you want to contribute to the topic of originality? Yes, please do.
Thank you. Thank you very much, three of you. I really I love all of your responses, like respectively. But I want to make this discussion more dramatic. So so I kind of like want to abstain with the idea of the you know, the interpretation, right? Because like right now, all of us try to interpret what is media, right? What is the meaning of how the origin, where is originality, right? Like once you see the media. So then like my question would be like, what does really mean to the word originality? I have been skeptical with myself with this word, like originality. It means like a few years actually, even now, because like I don't know, I'm not sure that we have a real originality. You know, it's a kind of some claims, right? It's a kind of like we try to say like, oh, this is original, right? This is authentic, right? But it comes from a kind of like I think similar to Tian respond about the process, right? For example, if for example Thai music, let's say, it come from the roots, come from Southeast Asian tribe, and before that come from you know, Tamil, right? Come from Cambodia. So but at the same time, it's, we try to find, to go back like, where is it? When did this start, right? But still, it's kind of like we assume that it's gonna be there, you know. We assume that, oh, this is originality, you know. So I just, what I want to say right now is that for me, media is an approach of the artist, you know, is an approach that how you build the media, right? For example, Mark Zuckerberg, right? He made social media platform, and now he go for metaverse, right? So even more complex, right? But before complexity, we already have social media, like when we talk to each other, right? Like even without Zoom, before we have MSN, right? Like before MSN, we are all old, right? I don't know, I become old. And before that, we had some kind of like page, right? The small. So it's kind of communicational devices, right? And then, so I mean, I'm doing this because I'm repeating this because it's kind of like we are tracing what is originality, right? So I kind of like skeptical. That's why I mean, maybe like all of you have a different approach, which is I'm very happy. I mean, we should think different. That's why I that's what I think. So, but so in my opinion, I feel like I think. For example, for my case, I think it's about the happening expression. So like it's a moment that at that time, what is your research, right? What was your point? What was your approach? What was your interpretation at that time? Like how you contribute your knowledge to the work, right? And then it depends on composer all the time, right? Like early works, one thing, middle age works, one thing, late work before they gone have another, different languages, right? So, but I kind of like I'm not sure. That's why I want to make it dramatic. So I'm not sure what is originality for me. So I have no clear definition for myself. And I feel like, but for now, when I see this discussion is a good opportunity to think about what is really media, right? What is like we are, what it's mean like what is we are doing, I think. So that's my response. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Piyawat. That's another interesting point of view that we can, think of and process. Okay, in mind of time, I think we have 10 more minutes before we can conclude this session. And with that, I think I will open the floor to all of our participants here to ask questions, our panelists here. So maybe we can take one or two questions. So you may unmute your mic and you may ask question directly to our panelists. Yes, Mr. Jonas.
Hi, congratulations to everybody. Fantastic presentations. I've been following through, even if I'm doing some other chores here in my room, it's on and etc. I am very much impressed about Agung Gunawan, and with all due respect to everybody, I think in Agung Gunawan's work we see what really art is, the essential of art as connected to life. There are two things. I've done something like what Anothai has done some years ago, and it has to do with, but it was an advocacy work. I had it's called 4 Thursdays, and I had 4 of my works performed, but they are actually framed within an advocacy for indigenous peoples who were at that time housed at the university because they had to escape militarization from in the southern Philippines. And 1/4 of that thing I did in Museum Siam some time ago. I don't remember. I think Anothai, we were together there. 1/4, but that all 4. And apparently, one of the things that came up in the discussion is about reality, the reality of the indigenous peoples, and art. Art, which actually simulates reality, and reality, which is supposedly in the context of Agung Gunawan, is the bloodline or the very essence of what art should be in that sense. Now, but if art simulates reality and we glorify art more than reality, are we more fascinated by the simulation of reality than reality itself? And that actually is the problem when you start thinking of originality, when you start thinking of ideas, that make impact. I think that we still have to be rooted, and I'm taking again from Agung Gunawan, we still have to be rooted to, I mean, we have this saying in the Philippines, your feet is on the ground. I think, and if we want to create something for our region here in the in Southeast Asia, we should be rooted to the ground. We should remember where we came from, where we are going to, and who we are addressing. It's just a little reminder that if we have certain ideas, we should also be aware of the social impact of ideas, not just ideas. I think it is a responsibility of us because we are addressing a region who is engulfed in a political economy that is dominated by, let's call them the West, Europe and America. And our role in this political economy is neither major. We are a market, etc. But we have a voice, and our art can be that voice. And I'm particularly having advocacy for indigenous peoples who are the most marginalized people in this global order. And it has always been my concern. I'm just commenting on that. But congratulations to everybody. It's very nice presentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Jonas, for the insight, your insightful opinion about that. Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, maybe we can have one more one more questions that we can have.
May I respond to Sir Jonas' questions?
Yes, sure.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I mean, on that side, on that front of kind of like being also a change agent, I would call, to the society using our own arts as well. I'm completely support that. But at the same time, I mean, I can understand still the work by Piyawat, for example, burning of the trombones and tuba, all those kind of things. I also agree that sometimes art can work as something surreal, so that people also have imaginations of what abundance would mean. For example, abundance of instruments.
That's in the way that, I mean, if you like to burn more instruments, you come to the College of Music. A lot of instruments. No, I know. You can also burn some people. I can show you some people you can burn.
I know. We were plotting that last night. I know. Anyhow, but I can still understand, even though in my own practice, I might not do that, but I can understand like why each composer and artist might use different approaches to create reality or surreal situation where people can find answers or provoke questions. That's it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Just one last sentence. Just one last sentence. I'm so sorry.
Sure.
Everything boils down into we are creating art, and we should be aware of the mode of production. How we produce this. Who will listen to this? Who will look at this? How we are presenting this, what spaces we have for this, and how is this related to the reality just outside it. If you look at a shopping mall, it is so unreal in the Philippines that you come, it's a symbol of lucrative life, you know, before the pandemic. But right outside the malls of the Philippines, you have these I think Piyawat saw this, this urban poor, this housing, this the very poor people, the worst in the society, so to say, those who couldn't afford anything. So that's a big irony that this juncture, so to say, in society. And I think if the malls can be an artwork in that sense, we can create an artwork around the reality. I think just that. I'm just so concerned about society in that sense.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Jonas. Awesome. Okay. I believe this webinar has definitely empowered the idea of cross-media arts and providing more outlets and more input for all composers and artists to work around these ideas. All right. So in mind of time, so I think we are about to conclude this session, and we would like to invite all of the speakers and all of the participants here to switch on their cameras for a session, for photo sessions, I believe. Yeah, so please switch on your camera, then we can have a nice photo. Yeah, it's good to see all of you here.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm really impressed of all your insightful sharing. It's very amazing. I would like to congratulate all of you. We hope to also all the participants here is also our good friends and also long-term colleagues. So we hope this collaboration will continue even after the pandemic or during the pandemic. And same for Jonas, sir. Sir Jonas, don't worry. All these poor people will live with their own way. You know, they can. It's true. We all, as an artist, we all poor, but we still alive. You see? Don't worry. We are strong enough to survive.
Oh, you are not poor.
I'm poor in many ways. And,
all right.
Yes, let's photo time.
Let's take the photo now. Yes. How about now, Jelal?
Is it good?
Right.
Yeah, I just screenshot already.
Oh, so all good now. Okay, good.
Let's do it again. Like,
okay, sure.
Cheese. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Please join us in the afternoon session if you have time. 1:30, we have to go into the Hopin platform.
Okay. I'll go to another conference, but I'll come back here.
Yeah, with Luca Ligeti if you want to talk to him.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
See you guys. Thank you.
All right. And hold on. I'm going to conclude this. Okay. So for that, I'd like to say thank you to all of our speakers for the time and for the effort to share their thoughts with us. And also, I'd like to say thank you to organizers, SoundBridge Festival, Kio, and also people who are working behind the scene, for the support and dedication. And thank you to all of our participants today for joining us. And please follow SoundBridge Festival on Facebook and YouTube to receive updates for the future events and get in touch to encourage more collaborations and opportunity. And on that, I, Sayyid Shafiee, I'm representing SoundBridge Festival this year, and also Studio C, together with Society of Malaysian Contemporary Composer. We would like to say thank you, stay safe and stay healthy, and we hope to see you in the next event of the festival. All right, so enjoy and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin.